it's like, it's really frustrating. Like, I'm not just saying stuff negatively about a team because I don't dislike TSM at all. And in fact, Bjergsen's one of my favorite Western players to play, and I think really highly of Haunter as a clutch player. He's like a rock. But I call a spade. So when you continuously draft poor compositions whose only win condition is win, and when I say like a win condition is only a win, the comp doesn't have a theme. So first it's no theme, and then on top of being no theme, it doesn't have any strong points relative to the comp that it's playing against. So it becomes extremely bizarre. And it's like, to say that isn't, I'm not hating, I'm not disliking, I'm not, I'm disliking the comp, it has nothing to do with the team. It's really disingenuous for people to assume that there's somehow some sort of bias or something going on there, but okay. So the problem is that TSM, unless they win across the board, which you can't actually win in top. I mean, you can win in top lane, but you're not gonna win in top lane. So unless you win across the board, you don't have a chance. You don't have a prayer. And then on top of that, who's LeBlanc's target? You can't one shot in Italy. She's not gonna get deleted by you until the later stages of the game. Like, we're talking like 40-50 minutes. And even then, I think that it's going to be extremely difficult. Now, Bjergsen is a player that's capable of finding the impossible, like the angles to jump into with distortion and whatever, to get that snipe. But realistically, if we're just talking about the comps and the teams are removed from them, it's going to be extremely difficult for LeBlanc to orchestrate any sort of, or to find a way at cracking the armor. You're not going to do it to Lissandra. You can't do it on Lucian reliably, just because of the way that AD carry is itemized nowadays, and Thresh isn't a reliable target either, so what is LeBlanc? She's sort of like a pseudo cleanup. What is Ezreal in this comp? Blue Ezreal. I mean, the champions aren't bad, and as standalones, they're not necessarily bad either, but they're not good. They're just sort of, they're neutral, no theme. And when you do a neutral, no theme comp, you need to just be superior in every aspect of gameplay when you do such a bland and boring, one-dimensional approach to the game. And this isn't just in League of Legends. This is in every game. This is in, it's in StarCraft 1, it's in StarCraft 2, it's in Warcraft 3, Warcraft 2, whatever. Like, RTSs I can keep listing. And you can also do it in fighting games and stuff, where you don't do anything flashy. You just do very generic, basic stuff. So anyways, now that we talked about that, we're gonna get into the game. And hopefully what I'm expecting to see, though, is captures of Rift Heralds, because on top of the Rift Herald problem, if Origen can actually make use of the Rift Heralds, Poppy will be so strong with it. And then Origen is definitely going to be the team that's in position to make use of the Rift Herald, and it's something that is extremely underused, not just in the West, but with all teams worldwide. And TSM doesn't have a very good answer to it, so that's always important to bring up. Let's just make sure that everything is recording. Okay, we are recording, and I have Discord open on the left-hand side. The game timer, for those that are wondering, it just hit 3, 301, 302, 303, 304, 305, 306. Okay, so if you guys are trying to follow along, but don't worry, I'm recording the VOD anyway. And then the other thing that is important, okay, so now TSM is slower. Now, this is also interesting to me, because it seems like teams are just doing this line swap, okay? I've been watching LCS and whatever for about the past 4 weeks or 3 weeks since I've been back, watching stuff with League and whatever. And for the most part, I think it's a little peculiar that it doesn't seem like people are understanding whose team clears it faster. And that's really important, because then it means that you fall behind in tempo, you fall behind in pace. Who necessarily benefits from it more? Oh my god. Okay, if the ESC game didn't tilt them enough, if Hansu would have just died there, holy shit. We were... oh, man. Okay, well... And now, see, here's the problem with this, is... Alright, so this swap... So, we talked about the Rift Herald. We talked about how much it benefited Poppy. We talked about how much it benefits Origen, and how TSM really doesn't have a very... Oh, we just froze for a second. We talked about how Origen doesn't really... have any weaknesses from getting it. Like, there's nothing that they would lose out on from trying to secure it, but TSM can't really make use of it. So when you reinitiate the line swap, you have to factor in everything. You have to factor in all the variables. And it seems like TSM's comp is just constantly behind tempo from Origen. And this is something that's really important when you make these decisions, because you don't just do these things and mimic them and blindly just go ahead and, you know, full speed ahead, full throttle, whatever. Because it doesn't make any sense, because we can already see that Origen's actually really far ahead, even though nothing's happened. And so this is a build order error. This is a 12th pool versus a 9 pool, you know, for Origen. And it has nothing to do with anything. And so when you have a composition like Origen's, okay, so TSM benefits from winning across the board, and right now they can't really win if there's nothing to win. So when you go into a neutral contention and you have a neutral no theme comp, it doesn't actually benefit you, even though obviously some people listening are, oh my god, that is a Herald. Oh my, I'm so fucking proud right now. Oh man, so fucking proud of Origen. They're doing it. They're getting the Herald. And they're giving it to Poppy, and there is no response for anyone on TSM. Oh, thank God. Oh, mother of heaven. Oh, this is beautiful. Okay. That is so big. So anyways, alright, so the Herald is really big. So it's basically 1/6 of a kill, roughly. You know, sometimes it gives 52, sometimes it gives 54 gold, whatever. But it adds up over time, and the CS that you end up losing while trying to secure it is basically negated by the gold that it grants globally. So I think it's an extremely underused objective, and it's really, really powerful. Now, giving to Nidalee doesn't make any sense. I think that it's a lot better on Poppy, especially because you can see the Poppy ended up getting locked out of the lane. But if you have Herald, you can't really get locked out of the lane because you're too fast, and then you're too powerful at shoving, and then your minions basically add way too much threat to anyone that tries to come and kill you, and especially 2 people aren't going to be able to kill you. So I don't really like it on Nidalee. I can see it being put onto the jungler in the later stages of the game when the jungler's mobility is going to be really important, but for this stage of the game, it doesn't really hold any value. And now you can see it again. TSM is basically getting beat to the punch. Now, they didn't only lose Herald, they lost out on mid control. They have Ezreal in tier 2 top lane, okay? And not only is it an Ezreal, it's a call tier Ezreal, which just makes no sense. It does make sense if you're trying to accelerate into a 4-tower game. And so if you accelerate into a 4-tower game and then you stalemate and you do nothing for the next 10 minutes, then it makes sense. The problem is you're already too far behind in tempo as TSM to really keep up and contest with Origen. And now what's going to end up happening is when Lysandra has her second blue, actually what I would prefer to see is to give the blue to Nidalee because of how fast the game is going. And then, if you get Dragon right now, and you give the second blue to Nidalee, you just force LeBlanc out of mid lane, and you compromise her. And then you force her to go into a lane where Nautilus is, and then you all inadvertently compromise Nautilus. And simultaneously, while you're doing all of this, you also compromise Ezreal, because he is going to need 15 minutes to be relevant, due to his item pathing. Now, that is fine for TSM if you have ways of working against it. And I think someone's pausing right now, because, you know, they better pray that there's a bug somewhere so they can get a remake, because this is just turning out to be a complete catastrophe right now. They are so far behind. They are so far behind right now. It's so amazing. And now TSM is a team that they're reliant on their mechanics to carry them, because we already know that when it comes to the macro decision makings, they just keep grouping up like this death ball. They think that they're a Protoss army, and they think they're just going to steamroll via Colossi. and it doesn't happen because teams are catching up, and you can be much worse than your opponents and win macro-wise. And the mechanics aren't always going to carry you. Sometimes it will, and sometimes it won't. But they need to learn to move. They need to learn to rotate. So we're just waiting on this pause now. I don't know if there's a rule about the talking during the pause. This is definitely a little interesting. Unless they're just talking to the staff behind them. Huh. Okay. All right, now the game is back. So now this is going to be a very weird predicament for TSMs. They don't have any viable angles of approach now onto Origen. They're 1,000 gold down, but you have to factor in that Origen is actually supposed to be Origen should be behind, or Origen should be actually even with TSM. So this is even worse because Origen is going to be the team that actually benefits from the scaling, much more so than TSM. And obviously, maybe to some people you hear, or not you hear, but you see Ezreal and you think that he is one of the biggest scaling champions in the game, but I don't know really what you're going to do in the later stages of the game, because you're not going to end up stacking Banshees and stuff against Nidalee, and then eventually Lyssandra's utility is going to get out of control for this TSM comp, and then Poppy is going to be absolutely gigantic, and you don't really have a reliable answer to her, so that's kind of bad. So now the issue that TSM's having right now is they're still about 12 minutes out from Ezreal getting any sort of relevancy via his items. So now Origen can basically continue to manipulate the map in a way that is basically going to pick and pull at TSM's comp and force them to constantly keep moving throughout lane swaps. And because TSM is behind on tempo, And Origen is obviously going to be the initiators and all of the... Oh my god, Yellow Star. Okay. Oh, but that might be all she wrote. Yep, that's going to be all she wrote. That's really unfortunate. And now that kill is basically just... that's a cherry on top. So this tower would be... It wouldn't be obviously as hurt as it's getting right now, but it would definitely still be hurt because you have to factor in the Janna shield. Janna Tornado definitely also going to slow down the DPS on it. This teleport I think is really questionable because I think it's relatively easy to disengage it, and then you also have to entertain the poppies coming. The other problem is that you're facing 2 teleports, so this is not just a very simple... Well, it ends up... Okay, well, that was a little... What? Okay, I can't really tell what's happening. Yellow Star comes in to die again, and TSM ends up picking it up and coming out ahead. Oh, but Bjergsen misses the chain. He doesn't have any... Yeah, he doesn't have any mana for E. Okay, I think Sven is going to make it out? I can't really tell. Does he have enough mana for E? No, but the tower is tanking aggro. Oh my god, he didn't die. But Svenskaren doesn't have any more wards left, I guess, so he can't continue to chase, but there was no mana. Ultimately, I think that was mechanical errors on Origen's part. I think the decision-making to call for the teleport was bad by TSM, because I don't think that they're entertaining the dual teleport. All right, we're going to see it one more time. Okay, I don't know what's going on anymore. Like, there was just 2 giant webcams of the players on the screen. Okay. So now TSM still behind in gold. The next Herald came up, and now this is where it becomes a little bit problematic for TSM. Is if Origen can get this Herald and use it to basically bust open the mid tower, it's going to become even worse for TSM, because that also means that now they're going to begin having to fight for vision contention over their red side and their blue side jungle, depending on where Origen tries to push. With Dragon coming up as well, if Herald were to go down and then Dragon goes down over to Origen, because TSM's not really in a position to contest it at this point in time, because of the ramp that Ezreal still needs. And LeBlanc hit a power spike, but she doesn't have a sustained power spike, and what I mean by that, she doesn't have CDR, she doesn't have mana restoration outside of the 2 Doran rings. So her sustain inside of the fight is going to be limited, especially if she doesn't have blue buff going. And then the other thing to consider is that Haunter doesn't have teleport. Now, Poppy doesn't have teleport and Lissandra doesn't have teleport. However, the top lane is irrelevant to Origen, whereas the top lane is relevant to TSM. And what I mean by that is, like, TSM's top tower can easily go down given how low HP value it has. So that is an objective that Origen can actually look to just try to snipe off really quick if it doesn't compromise them in other areas. Now, this is bad, because this is the sort of sustain stuff that Power of Evil can take, because his team has initiative and his team has tempo, and Bjergsen can't take those type of trades because he doesn't have the ability to sustain through it. And when that type of stuff happens, now you see the blue buff coming up. Now, this is a situation where I think it's actually correct to give it to Nidalee and not to give it to Power of Evil. But it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case, because I think if you give it to Nidalee there and you give up on bot lane and you enable TSM to shove the bot lane back into you, which you can then lock in about 2 minutes into the future, you bring Nidalee mid, you end up securing the Rift Herald via Poppy, you put the Rift Herald onto Nidalee so that she's able to actually run through the jungle, because now we're entering into the middle portion of the map, and then you use the blue barrage to attack the fact that LeBlanc doesn't have any sort of mana sustain or any sort of wave clear, nothing. Ezreal's still ramping, Haunter doesn't have teleport, there's no way for him to get mid, Lee Sin is way too vulnerable, and you can use that to bust open the mid tower via the Herald. Then, after that, bot lane is shoved into you, you have a perfect lock for Soaz, or a perfect lock for Power of Evil, it enables you to keep scaling up even more, and then what ends up happening is TSM has to invest more resources in division than you do as Origen, thus enabling you to complete your core items sooner than TSM is, and that hurts them even more because, again, we talked about how they're a neutral no-theme comp, so it's not like they have any angles that's actually they're going to be working towards. Svenskaren, no, I don't think he'll go down there because he has the dragon kick, so they can't actually chase through that corridor They would just end up getting dragon kicked. Now, this is an interesting situation where this is what we talked about the top lane. Like, it doesn't cost them too much to try to go for this top lane tower, and obviously Haunter's not in a position where he can defend it. You see the defense pings going down on it, but they're way too out of position. So this might actually, well, never mind. It doesn't seem like they're actually going to capitalize on picking it off. But it's definitely something that's really viable. Now, what would be really interesting is if Origen realizes that their mid-tier 1 tower is basically a sacrificial lamb. If they sacrifice their mid-tier 1 tower, the bot lane doesn't actually matter. You could just let Doublelift keep doing this all day, because this is actually a really bad choice by TSM to keep Doublelift in the bot lane. Doublelift would be much better right now in the mid lane. It would actually probably be better to have LeBlanc in the bot lane, because at this point in the game, it doesn't really do anything, but Ezreal would be much more beneficial to keep him around mid. Even though LeBlanc is 2-0-2, and she obviously does pack a punch, you're not going to be looking for any sort of fights in the next few minutes, especially because any of the fights that you're going to be taking are going to be on the defensive, in which case LeBlanc could easily get there off of a recall and distortion Ws. Sooner than Ezreal could. So that's important to note. I don't like the fact that Soaz, though, is in bot lane. I think that they should have devoted more resources to mid and top, basically letting bot lane be a suffocation chamber for TSM, because it's basically a lane that they can prevent TSM from ever getting access to again, or Origen being the ones that can prevent TSM from getting access to it. And when you constrict an entire side of the map, and there's also no neutral objective on that side of the map, it ends up turning into an ATM for you, which is really good. And then Bjergsen ends up getting the deletion on Nidalee, which is obviously going to be really good. And now TSM is catching up in gold. This isn't the worst. I just saw a ping go down on the bottom tier 2 tower. I don't really know what could be getting talked about right now, because I don't think there's any sort of... Well, the only thing that I guess they could do is they could surrender their top tier 1 tower, and they can use it for position. So basically, they can say to Origen that if you want to take the top tier 2, or sorry, yeah, if you want to take the top tier 2 tower, you're welcome to, and then they can use that to fortify a position on the right side of the map. It's a little bit early to prepare for Dragon. It's probably about 3 minutes out, but with that being said, you can definitely 0-4-1. And into a, you can sacrifice your mid-tier 1 tower, and then go into a 0-0-5 into a recall, before the neutral objective would end up coming up, but it's too little too late anyway, and it looks like they're going to give up their mid tower regardless, you know, because wraiths are very important. Is he gonna, wow, he ends up having to blow flash. I guess he didn't have W? Yeah. So this is really bad, and now it looks like they're doing the shove, but it's like, I don't even understand these decisions. Like, it looks like solo queue in a lot of ways. This looks like the part of the game where the AD carry is really mad at his team, so he just keeps split pushing. I'm sure that everyone in chat has had that one or two Lucians that you just sit in the bottom lane, and he's really mad at his support, so he doesn't do anything. That's basically what's going on right now. With Amazing, is he going to get the pickup onto... Or Svenskaren, is he going to get the pickup onto... Wow, Bjergsen. Okay. Bjergsen is, like, saving them. It doesn't change the fact that the decisions overall are relatively bad. Like, Bjergsen saving the kill on Nidalee there, you would end up trading bot tier 2 for top tier 2, which is going to actually be more beneficial for TSM than it is going to be Origen, because we talked about how TSM can then... that top tier 2 tower was on its last leg. It was basically like a stock that just kept going down and down and down. However, Origen's tier 2 was not like that at all. Origen's tier 2 is really, really healthy, and so it's a really powerful trade to make for TSM right there. And then in doing so, they also secured vision control over the right-hand side of the map, and now they can use it to constrict Origen as they try to go into Dragon, and they can capitalize on Dragon. I don't like, I think Nautilus, rather than teleporting into the fight, it would be a lot better if he actually was at the fight and then he teleports post-fight, or he conserves his teleport so that you're able to position him or send him to, oh god, the mic might fall, sorry. You send him somewhere that is necessary depending on how the fight goes or how something ends up turning out. So I think that would be a lot better. On top of that, if a fight ends up blundering really bad and they try to go for some wonky Baron, it would definitely be ideal to have teleport on him. Looks like Bjergsen ends up getting the kill onto Power of Evil, and it looks like TSM is still in okay shape, and it looks like Mithy ends up going down. Sven devotes his ulti into trying to kill Lee Sin. It looks like Soaz is kind of running away. So now Origen is really dropping the ball on these rotations. I think that had they not gone down right there, the ability to conserve teleport on Soaz would have been a lot bigger. The other thing that's not getting talked about nearly enough is the dual teleport that Origen's using and their lack of ability to make use of it as this game keeps progressing. And that dragon was pretty big for Origen relative to how the game was going. So it's pretty unfortunate that they lose it. Looks like Yellowstar ends up getting taken down right there. I was just listening to the casters talk, so I'm sorry that I wasn't talking. A lot of what Monty is saying was pretty accurate about the static shiv. The static shiv, I think, does make sense, though, because it adds wave clear power in the event that you are doing the 1-3-1, so I don't think it's actually as bad as he was just saying. I can definitely understand it, especially relative to the game flow, because they're really not making use of the 1-3-1 the way that they could be doing, and so adding a gear to it, even if it's a poor decision, is understandable. And I don't think it's actually that poor of a decision. I think it's very close. So it's not that bad. So you can easily just go into a 1-3-1 right now with Lucian and basically stall mid, because TSM doesn't actually have a proper response to 1-3-1s. And it feels like this game is going to be one off of one fight. That's basically been the story of a lot of these games. And when I say something like that, I mean it's not like a victory through macro. It's more so like one team botches a fight and then one just wins. TSM ends up botching the fight, and this is what we were talking about, is you can't really choose to continuously keep allocating gold into players that can't really make use of it at this point in time, in terms of TSM, like what TSM is doing. And so all the eggs are in the LeBlanc basket, and when you have something like that going on, it also doesn't make sense why like Lee Sin's itemizing the way that he is. It doesn't make sense why Nautilus is itemizing the way that he is. Everything else I think is fine, though, beyond that. They end up picking up a kill on Poppy because I don't understand why Origen chose to do what they do after the team fight ended. So that's a little unfortunate. Now, if you're TSM, you want to steal the blue. You want to keep LeBlanc in mid. You want to pray that they send top lane back into you, and then you just want to keep the other three in bottom, and then you want to enable Lee Sin to basically clear his entire side jungle. So during temporary stalls in the game, such as this is where you as a jungler gain the opportunity to basically do a full clear, and that really helps you as a jungler, because usually at this point of the game, your mid laner or your AD carry is going to begin dipping into your resources inside of the jungle. Not that it matters too much, but it is very nice when you do get opportunities to harvest your own resources. With Dragon now coming up, I like what the casters just said, what Doa and Monty just said, where basically there's already been so many errors happening across the board that eventually the death timers are going to basically add up, or they're going to eventually just mean too much, and there's going to be one big fight and the game's going to end. And that's basically what I was saying a few minutes ago, where it feels like this game is going to end not via proper macro, not via, you know, any sort of special fancy play or anything, but more so just, I think Origen is actually just going to beat TSM in a fight. Because the longer that this game goes on, the more beneficial it's going to get for Origen. And I mostly say that because eventually LeBlanc is going to plateau in terms of her worth inside of a team fight, and it's basically going to be up to Bjergsen's skill as a player to continue to make her go further and further. And that's basically going to be because the itemization for Origen is going to begin to kick in, where they can actually resist her. And all of the gold is being allocated inside of Nautilus and inside of LeBlanc. Obviously, you can factor in Ezreal's CS, but I don't think it's nearly as big as how they're choosing to move around the map and who ends up eating the resources. A lot of Ezreal's CS also came in from the bottom lane. It is important to note that Ezreal does have a lot of gold, but it would obviously be a little bit more ideal if he had a little bit less and Nautilus had a little bit less, I think, and if Lee Sin had a little bit more and LeBlanc actually had more, because LeBlanc needs to keep accelerating. She hasn't plateaued yet, but she's going to soon, and you just want her to plateau as soon as possible, as weird as that sounds, and you want to hope that you did it at a fast enough speed so that she's able to just kind of bulldoze through people. Now, trades like this do not benefit TSM. Okay, we talked about how top lane early on, people might have misunderstood what I meant, but top lane benefited TSM in the sense that you could have traded your tier 2 turret. Top lane does not benefit TSM relative to the compositions. Now, this is going to be very interesting because Power of Evil is overcommitted. Poppy knocks away Nautilus. That doesn't actually do anything. Whoever I think gets the first pickup of a kill here is going to end up winning the fight. I also think that this fight is going to turn into Baron. Okay, well, Lucian didn't recall. This is really important to notice. So now it's basically going to be one of those really weird, wonky situations where they're going to trade top inhibitor for mid inhibitor, and this is going to benefit Origen a lot more than it's going to benefit TSM, because the top side of the map is going to be the next focus point for both teams. TSM doesn't really need the second dragon because all the tier 2 towers are already down, and they also have one tier 3 tower busted open. You could argue that maybe they would need it for ending a Nexus tower, but honestly, if they can just get a clean ace and a clean Baron, it's going to be irrelevant anyway. Origen, however, having the mid wide open is really, really big, because on top of that, you have to factor that Lucian's going to be able to be the first one that makes it to dragon. They're going to be able to beeline to dragon much faster than TSM's going to be able to, and thus they're going to capture dragon. So now what's going to end up happening is that the Baron fight is going to be the biggest thing, and obviously Origen now having to defend top lane with Baron is going to be significantly easier than defending mid lane or bot lane from a Baron stall or a Baron stalemate. So that trade is really, really, really bad for TSM. And now look, they're funneling up mid. Like, how many TSM games are we gonna watch like this? How many? How many? Oh, mother of God. Okay. They gave the blue to Ezreal, and I don't know if that was totally intentional. I want to say that it was. I want to say that it was intentional, because Ezreal looked like he was running out of fuel. The banner of command coming out of Mithy is a little bit interesting. They're mentioning that right now on the cast, primarily because it opens up another avenue, and it's going to apply pressure to TSM in a lane that they cannot really go to right now. Bot lane is sort of like a forsaken territory for both teams. Like, Poppy can't really make use of it, neither can Nautilus at this point in time, and I don't think that it's ever going to come into play. I think the remainder of this game is going to be decided via top lane and mid lane relative to how the game has turned out and the choices that, you know, everyone's made so far. Some people in Discord chat are asking, do I think Void Staff this early on LeBlanc was good? And I think that it is. And the reason that I think that it is because we talked about LeBlanc's plateau. And so what, alright, well, that is 2 times now that he has ulted Nautilus, and it has done absolutely nothing. I think rather than using the Poppy ultimate, you need to hold on to it a little bit longer. So you use no CC as CC, and then you use it accordingly inside of a team fight. But anyways, getting back to the LeBlanc thing. I think that the Void Staff on LeBlanc is a great way to enable the plateau of herself to basically be delayed, quote unquote, for the enemy team, but to just enable her to keep accelerating in the mid game, mid into late game transition, because it makes it extremely difficult to itemize against her, because even when you're getting the items that are supposed to be effective against her, it's not really doing what you want it to do. And because she was already such a force to be reckoned with, I think it's still good. So now basically, now bot lane becomes a viable tool, because now Poppy can actually make use of it with the teleport or Lysandra. It doesn't matter who goes, but now bot is actually an option for Origen because the game has softened up and there's now a lack of tempo. And with the top inhibitor coming back up again soon, it's going to be really difficult for TSM to make use of going to that position as an attack point. And basically it's going to overextend them, and they can take this mid tier 2 tower all they want. It doesn't do anything for them. Alright, so anyways, now all that needs to happen, the recall timings, the fact that it all occurred at once, because you have to think of Fog of War and using Fog of War as, or using Fog of War as a tool against Origen. So if you don't all recall at once and some of you stay on the map as pressure, obviously they can guess that you're recalling, but guessing is not an acceptable thing to do at the pro level, unless it's like a really close guess based on a lot of information or no information as information, and that wasn't going to be the case right here. So I think that the group recall, I think, was actually poor right there from TSM. And when I think you do something like that, and the fact that Origen still has both of their teleports up, they could have been doing a lot more things with the lanes than what they're choosing to do. It looks like top lane is glaciering, though, it looks like that. I don't know if that's going to be the case. I also don't know where the banner of command is, but it was apparently used. Maybe that's in top lane, and that's the reason that it's looking that way. This dragon, again, we already talked about it. It doesn't really do much for TSM. It is unfortunate that Origen wasn't able to secure it or fortify a defensive position that would enable them to have taken dragon or taken a fight like that. The problem with doing so is, if you're Origen, is if you go for that fight, you really do risk the ability of getting forced out of mid lane, and if you get forced out of mid lane and then they can delay the recalls, you might even lose the mid tier 3 tower, and that could be really bad. This is a word that I wanted to use there, but I couldn't think of it on the spot, so that was a little bizarre. I just got like brain fog for a second. I apologize. Okay. These are the things that are a little weird. Now, what Origen can do is they can proxy the next wave, and if they proxy the wave, then TSM has nothing in mid lane, and they're basically trapped in top lane. So basically, as Origen, they've successfully enticed. This is a complete disaster. This is what we were just talking about, where now they have cornered themselves between a rock and a hard place in top lane. They have no wave in top. They have no minion fodder. Origen's gonna have fodder as minions. Look, here come the minions. Look, and those minions are so big. Those are the Zerglings underneath the Mutalisks to block skill shots. They are so fucking huge to this team fight. I can't even, like, there's actually no way to describe how big they are. But they don't seem to be being made of use of. And then it ends up like TSM ends up capitalizing on finding a good position. But Svenskeren is the first one to go down. And it looks like Origen. Now, Origen also has the home guard. Okay, but Soaz goes down, and that's a little bit unfortunate. Soaz, I think, actually should get Guardian Angel, because he is a main focus point, and he is the main tank, and he does demand a lot of attention inside of the fights. This is such a catastrophe. Oh my god, I thought Mithy was going to die for a second. That would be really unfortunate to die on top of that. Now, I think because you know that Origen hasn't been on this side of the map for the last few minutes, you can basically safely assume that there's not too much vision control over it. I think that decision by TSM was extremely poor. And for your tournament life, I think that it doesn't make any sense. And I think Origen, they had one of two choices. I think the fight is actually a better choice than the other one. The other choice was to proxy the mid wave and then send one person down mid, or send two people down mid and concede top inhibitor, and then you just chase them and you deny the recall, and thus again you trade top inhibitor for mid inhibitor, in which case again it always benefits Origen, unless like this was going to be 50 minutes or something. If it was going to be 50 minutes and the death timers are lights out even in an extended fight, then it can actually be beneficial for TSM in some cases, depending on how the top minion wave looks, depending on when they're going to take the fight. If Svenskeren goes down here, that's probably Baron. That's Baron. They should just beeline to Baron. And even if you don't do Baron, or you don't start Baron, etc., you just beeline to it. You clear out all the vision, and then you make them play a guessing game. Because they're only going to have one blue sweeper thing up, and you know that. So it's very easy to play around Baron, and then even if you don't play around Baron, like if you come out of the woods, and then you go up mid lane, it's probably a free inhibitor. The problem, though, with the free inhibitor is it's a little bit risky depending on how the fight goes and how the contestation of it goes. And I say that primarily because if they end up stalling you or delaying you long enough, then what ends up happening is you end up doing mid for Baron, which is a very solo QE. Now, this is even more bizarre. So the teleport, they chose to do this Baron bait play, but they did not set up flank teleport wards. Or maybe they did set up the flank teleport ward, but that pink pink ward, not Shaco. Maybe that cleared it. Well, now this is just awful. So this is sort of like a a mini mid for Baron. Oh, wow. If that tower goes down, this is going to be horrendous. Okay. Okay. Well, that's going to probably be Baron, unless Amazing... Well, Amazing actually has the level up on Lee Sin, so there is a slight difference in terms of smite damage, but Bjergsen looking like he was coming out from around the side to basically protect against any attempt at a Baron steal. Baron steals would hurt, but I don't think it would be game-breaking for TSM. In the event that it happened, I don't think it would be lights out. Makes no sense whatsoever. There's absolutely zero reason to do a 5-man funnel mid. You easily could have sent one person top lane. You could have easily sent LeBlanc top, had her escort the wave via Baron buff, then have her join with her team in mid, and then unite with whoever was slowly pushing up bot lane. Given how mobile you are on Ezreal, given the disengage on Janna, given the dragon kick on Lee Sin and its short cooldown, you easily could have orchestrated a 1-3-1 even though your comp isn't designed to do it, and then from there, you can just snip the time bomb in any lane that you choose, and then you just kind of implode, or your Origen is going to implode, because the minions are just going to be pressing on them from every single angle, and then it's going to be too much pressure to handle. Honestly, Haunter should just tank. Like, when they just conceded that position, it should have just instantly been a tank. But I don't understand why it wasn't. Look at that. Look. LeBlanc kills it in like 2 hits or like 3 hits. So if Ezreal hit it once, LeBlanc hit it once, the fight just ends up taking place. Like, I don't understand. Now, maybe some people listening are like, but LS, aren't you just telling him to 5-man fight mid? Well, yeah, with 3 lanes pulsating, I think it's fine, and it's also reasonable that, you know, with Baron, you can probably win that because of the position that Origen had. That looks like it's going to be game, because now they're going to get the mid inhibitor, and then they're going to end up getting the bottom tier 3 inhibitor. So, TSM, I don't think they played phenomenally. They were a little bit more disciplined. They still made some very bad choices, like that choice in top lane where they got sandwiched and they were between a rock and a hard place. I think that can end up turning out very badly. And actually, I know that can turn out badly in a lot of scenarios. I don't understand why they didn't just to move down to bottom as well and eat up that minion wave. I think that would have been fine with all 5 of them there. And now, basically, it's just a leaning process. They didn't need to lean on Origen, and then Origen's going to collapse. The fact that Lee Sin didn't just do the dragon, I don't think makes any sense. I don't think there was a rush for anything. Lee Sin should have just done it. Obviously, yeah, you know no one's coming, but it's just about time efficiency. Getting the red buff on double lift and then having to recall is a poor choice because, I mean, you do have double buff. You have blue and you have red, but still, you must have gold that you want to spend. Even if it's just to get boot upgrade, because you have the home guard, even if it's just to get boots upgrade and to get an elixir, it doesn't matter, because it's not like you're racing against a clock right now in terms of inhibitors coming up anytime soon. You're not racing against a Baron clock. There's nothing that's pressuring you in mid or top lane. I think it would have just been fine to just recall and have a much more efficient poke. And then on top of that, another thing here is I think if Lee Sin had Guardian Angel, it would basically be lights out for Origen. Or if Nautilus had Guardian Angel. If either one of them had Guardian Angel, it would be lights out, because Lucian doesn't have a way to actually deal with him. So if at any point it becomes a 2v2 or a 3v3 inside of an extended fight, Lucian just can't do anything against it, and neither would Poppy. They just wouldn't have the damage output to actually deal with it. So Nautilus would end up turning immortal with the cooldowns and everything. Lee Sin, not as much, but Lee Sin would still be pretty annoying. He would definitely still be a thorn in one of their team sides. So now this is just a very standard cookie cutter stall. They just need to get down that tower. As soon as that tower falls, it's basically all over. So it looks like Bjergsen continues to keep looking for the angles. Now there's a teleport flank. Oh, but that Lissandra, like that teleport in was like North Korea, if they like told the that was like North Korea launching an attack, and like Bjergsen was like the US. Like I just don't know. I just don't know like what just happened right there. Okay, so that ends up being the game. Bjergsen got out of control, but it still doesn't change the fact that there was a lot of errors being made, and it doesn't change the fact that the composition in itself was pretty weak. Has nothing to do with the picks and bans. Like the game was not decided by picks and bans anywhere, obviously, but it is important to mention. It also looks like they're very, very tilted right now, but it's okay. All right, so that's it for this VOD.